Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Skript. Skript is looking to take open banking to provide financial services and payments infrastructure solutions for businesses. As we say, we're the ones selling shovels in the gold rush.
Well, Sarah, welcome to Fintech Chatter. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So, a couple of selfish reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show today. The unselfish reason is, we're showcasing the next wave of Aussie fintech innovators. The selfish reason is that about 9 months ago, I moved up to the Newcastle region of New South Wales. And when I found out that you were based there, I thought this would be a really great opportunity for me, wanting to find out what's happening fintech-wise here, because I've been so obsessed with Sydney and Melbourne. But I guess too, we've seen recently there's a lot that's happening outside of those two cities, and Australia itself is becoming a real fintech hub. And so I thought it'd be great to get your kind of take on what we can see from regional areas rather than just our major cities. But look, first, before we do any of that, would you kind of like to tell our listeners a little bit more about Skript and what you do?
So Skript is an open banking fintech. We are looking to use open banking data to create financial services and payment infrastructure solutions. So that is our value add beyond the basic data that you get. If you're a business and say you don't want to go through the efforts of full CDR accreditation because it is quite a lot to go through, we provide those ready-made use cases for you, and you can start getting value out of open banking straight away.
Awesome. So could you give me maybe an example of where your product and solution could kind of benefit, say, a consumer like myself?
At the moment, we're business facing, so the solutions we would provide would be something that, for example, if you're looking to refinance your home loan, rather than having to dig through all your bank statements, send them off in an email, go through all the documentation process, we're looking to actually use open banking to make that process a lot easier. So we can actually give a snapshot of real data and give the brokers or lenders a summarised version of your income and expenses, so they don't have to go through and say, this is Dexter's wage for this month, this is Dexter's wage for the month before. They can see that, and it is straight away verified because it is the data from the bank itself. So it saves a lot of manual going through papers, which for the loan verification industry, there is still quite a lot of that.
Yeah, tell me about it. I went through the mortgage process about a year ago, and I think it was 3 months later, we still didn't have all the information. When it comes to, and there's been a lot of talk about open banking. It's been kind of one of the kind of fintech sizzle, kind of themes over the last couple of years. We're now, it's nearly 2 years since CDR went live. Where would you say we're kind of at? Because if you look at the UK, for example, there's still a debate running as to whether their open banking regime has actually served any purpose or not. Where do you think we're at here in Oz, Sarah?
I'd say we're probably at least a couple of years behind the UK. If I'd say we're at the point where it's all starting to get interesting. For these 2 years, it has been very much about the data holders getting on. So the big four were the first ones, and there's still many smaller institutions. I think the likes of Frollo have done an amazing job trying to get all of those smaller institutions on. And I think we're now starting to see the time of the data receiver.
Yeah. So you mentioned there one of the competitors. There's quite a few in the space. How are you guys and how Skript differentiating from the competition?
We're looking beyond those initial data APIs because, as you mentioned, there's many people you could get those from. We want to create the value add solutions. As you mentioned, in the UK, they're really thinking, oh, has this provided any value for us?
Yeah.
So it would be our job in Australia for people not to ask that question. And if they do, we haven't done well. Because, so we will be providing the products. So, as the example I used for lenders, if you're a lender or a broker and you want to spend less time getting documentation from people, less time looking through bank statements, we can use open banking to empower that process. And it's not just a matter of giving income and expenses, because again, that's a crowded space. A lot of people are doing that. We want to be able to create services that people in industry actually want. So we want to see how they're doing it, and we want to see what we can bring to the table.
The key distinction between Australia and say the UK is, we're going to be going way beyond banking, and I hear more and more the term open finance. We've got superannuation here in Australia. There's then insurance. There's all of this other stuff that certainly if I look at my kind of financial situation or financial position, banking is only one part of that. Where do you see that kind of premise of open finance, and do you have do you share that view, or do you have maybe a different view?
Yeah, open finance is one that we're particularly excited about here at Skript, because it does mean you can get into those higher level use cases. So it's not a case of, we have to do the cheapest payments, we have to do the cheapest API calls. We can actually come up with something that's really tailored to what the users want. And as someone who's been looking at new investments myself, I can say it would be fantastic to have an open banking style platform with that information. So I know who's doing what product, how much they're going to charge me, and ideally down the track in open finance, be able to say, yes, I want to apply for that and apply on those rails.
I guess we've seen that concept a little bit with things like comparison sites. Do you think there's an argument that we kind of need to rethink what we're how we're delivering this to customers, rather than just another comparison site, but using open banking and making it secure?
Definitely, and I think this is going to be a huge shake-up for those sites. Yes, their motors being that it's quite difficult to get this data.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll definitely be putting a lot more power in the hands of the consumers. And this is where I think the brokers still will be important.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to work a lot harder to be able to get the connections and the best deals for consumers. Yeah, so comparison sites, I guess, will evolve a bit from we can give you these rates to we have relationships with the providers.
Yeah.
And we can make it worth your while getting better rates through us.
Right. And what I was going to ask you there as well is, and I've forgotten what I was going to ask you, so I'll probably have to come back to that. So when you that's a question I was going to ask. When you're working with the big banks, I've sensed over this last 3-4 years real reluctance to get on board open banking. A lot of people have said that they've dragged their heels. I think that, the government's done a particularly good job of at least applying some pressure. Where do you think the big banks are at now in terms of getting on board with the whole concept of open banking? Are they seeing the opportunities, or are they still seeing it as a potential threat?
I think there's still a little cautious of it. So previously working for one of the big banks, I can kind of see it from their perspective, in that it's a very expensive project, and if anything, it will likely cost them money rather than give them an advantage. But I see Commonwealth Bank in particular has made the moves quite early to become a data holder, and they do look to be innovating in that space.
Yeah.
So I think the banks are, well, they're always going to be slower than the startups.
Yeah.
It's the nature of companies.
It's a good example, Commonwealth Bank, because they've made some interesting investments, Amber being one of them, on the electricity side. And then we had another guest on, Carter, which is gift cards, which I think Commonwealth Bank now are using their technology in the CBA app as well. So this kind of whole premise of the super app, which Revolut's a client of ours, who I think have kind of pushed that innovation. We're starting to now see certainly Commonwealth Bank kind of follow down that path. Do you think we're going to see others follow as well, Sarah?
I don't think the others are quite as willing to take the risk on innovation, but I think if they do start to see the value in it, then they will probably open the checkbooks rather quickly.
And I guess outside of banking, where are you seeing the other potential opportunities and use cases for this? Superannuation, it's a $3 trillion industry here, and it's still it's run on paper and Excel spreadsheets. where are you seeing it kind of and where's got you excited right now around where this where Skript can really play?
Yeah, I think a lot of those older school industries, so lending an example, they love their Excel spreadsheets, and the insurance industry is not much better. They do operate very old school. So I think there's a lot of room for disruption in a lot of industries at the moment. As far as telecommunications and energy, I think it'll be very interesting to see how that goes.
Why do you say that?
Just because the use cases are a little fuzzier in that area.
Yeah.
So it is all very much product information, which will probably scare the comparison sites. But yeah, the thing we probably would really need there is right access. So people can take advantage and apply straight away for those.
And so what is right access? Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So for an example, in UK open banking, they can actually do payments. So at the moment, Australian open banking is just read, you just get information. A right access would be, for example, the infrastructure to accept an application, to do a payment, to be able to switch from one provider to another. So you manage the closing of accounts with one and the opening with another. So that's the other half.
So then you're getting into all issues like KYC and digital ID and all of those things as well.
Yes. So there's certainly a lot to be ironed out there.
Yeah, sounds complex. And I guess talking about Skript as a business, how old is Skript now?
We just celebrated our first birthday.
Oh, congrats.
About a month ago. So yeah, we're still pretty young.
Yeah. How did the idea come about?
Guess the idea was the three founders, so Eric, Mark, and myself. The three of us are very much veterans of the banking and payment space. So I guess the idea was to use the experience that we've had with these solutions and how to use open banking data to make them better.
Was there a kind of that frustration or that itch of having been in large institutions and just always getting frustrated about being able to do things differently better? Was that the kind of burning itch that you had to kind of satisfy by doing Skript?
Yeah, I think we were of a single mind there that we would have liked to have done more and things faster. But in the corporate world, it's not always possible.
It's not, is it? It's not. So what was the thinking then behind, I guess, kind of being based out of Newcastle? Because it's not a place that would have struck me as a hotbed for fintech talent. I usually would go Sydney, Melbourne. But we're seeing now there's a lot of talent in regional Australia that we're kind of starting to see come to the fore. But what was that thinking behind Newcastle rather than say Sydney?
I guess it was Mark and myself knowing the IT community.
Right.
So there are a lot of qualified payments and banking developers in Newcastle. There's big companies like Newcastle Permanent, The Greater, and Kivalent, who's a subsidiary of Westpac.
Yeah.
Now, those companies can all produce developers and security operations people that have experience with banking level regulation and
Yeah.
flows of payments. So the talent is here for fintechs.
Awesome. What about it? I mean, it's a great university, Newcastle University as well. Have you been, have you been able to build links with the universities at all for the next generations of talent?
That is something that we are very big on at Skript. So my husband Mark is actually a computer science lecturer at the University of Newcastle. So we have
Oh, wow.
very strong links into the university.
Yeah.
And
You got an unfair advantage there, Sarah.
we do. It's fantastic. So while Mark's doing the capstone course, he can kind of keep an eye on the talent. And we have been incredibly lucky that way that we do find people because with graduates, it is really good to start the relationship in that last year of university. And the University of Newcastle has what's called the Work Integrated Learning Program. So that is a subject that students can take, and they partner with the company to do a research project. So we've taken about 5 students between Skript and my Mars consulting company, Hunter Orbit, and they're doing various assignments for us, like infrastructure as code, using data science to get anonymized test data that's actually useful. So when you have the script sandbox, you want people to be able to see data where if the person lives in Newcastle, they're not getting their coffee in Melbourne every day.
Yeah, got you. Now, there's obviously, hot topic, and it's one that I'm, really passionate about and have some fairly strong and contrarian views to maybe a lot of my clients and the fintech community is around talent and the skill shortage. I mean, to my mind, having $7.6 billion people of the most advanced we've ever had in the history of humankind that we can connect with, who can work from anywhere in the world, and we've got access to those people. I can't understand how we're claiming there's a skill shortage. I think oftentimes, one is that I think, the expectations are too high of what businesses demand. And the other one is that in fintech, we're at the cutting edge of innovation. And so, to find somebody who's already done the thing that you're trying to do and you're the first one trying to do it, suggests to me that you're not going to find a pool of talent. You can just go and pick the best ones from. So I'm kind of really interested that, when you're looking at graduates who haven't got any experience, how do you assess and determine, whether somebody's going to, kind of be a fit, and whether they're going to have the potential to develop and deliver within an organization? Because I'm assuming, right, you're a small business, you can't just carry people for the sake of, kind of, being great citizens and giving people a shot. They've got to be able to kind of provide some value somehow.
Correct. So the main thing we look for at the graduate level is attitude. Think very much with someone who's a hardcore developer. At that stage in their career, you can really see who can carry themselves with confidence, who is organized. And as you said, we do also have an advantage in that we're part of the uni, so we know exactly how they've gone in their courses.
Yeah, yeah. What are the when you do have a graduate in the business, what have you found have been the ways, the support that you need to give, and the things that you can do to ensure that, one, they're comfortable, and they feel that they can contribute, and two, that that you get something in return as well.
I think a lot of the things you need to teach graduates are not so much the coding, but everything around it. So there's a very big difference between coding at university and coding professionally. And then we have other disciplines such as technical analysis. That's something you really have to get out into the world to do. I know universities are doing a lot better now at teaching all that stuff than when I was at uni 20 years ago. And it's really something you kind of need to get in front of stakeholders. So you are looking at how the person talks. Do they seem like someone who's going to be able to get in front of a client who may be 30, 40 years older than them? Are they going to be able to be confident enough to ask the questions that are needed?
Now I mentioned a couple of kind of notable, I guess, businesses that have sprung out of regional areas, Scalapay and Wollongong, and with Zepto and Byron Bay. What is it that you think, Sarah, regional centres have got as an advantage over, say, a Sydney or a Melbourne, when it comes to being able to innovate, but also, I guess, build a business as well?
Guess we do have one advantage of a very close knit tech community, especially in Newcastle. Just about everyone knows everyone. So you can get a good idea of people that you hire and build a great team that way. So it's not so much going in blind in Newcastle. You, by chance, know someone or know the person that you're actually hiring. So that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, yeah. I've been asked, a number of times over the last several years as to when we're going to start recruiting for developers and lower down, and it's just something that I never ever see our business doing, because the level of service that we provide, our whole approach is very much around building that network and knowing people and understanding them. And unfortunately, in Sydney and Melbourne, the developer communities, and might get, this isn't to be disparaging, but they're just so transactional. People moving for another $5,000, $10,000, right? Compounded by a recruitment industry that kind of makes it even worse by just playing this kind of sausage factory of talent and people. And so I think it's what you said there is a real advantage of having true community where people understand there's less of an opportunity for you to be moving around, and you gotta stick around, right, for success. It's something that's earned. It's not just kind of doesn't come immediately.
Very much so. And if you were the person that moved every 6 months for an extra 5 or 10,000, people would be wise to that pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And when you kind of look at Newcastle, I mean, what's got you excited about, what do you think is the potential of it as a kind of fintech, kind of a satellite hub for Sydney?
I think Newcastle has amazing potential. The Newcastle City Council and University of Newcastle are both investing heavily in innovation. So
Yeah,
the Newcastle City Council has programs and grants available. So at the moment, there's a smart city grant. If you can think of an innovation that will help Newcastle as a smart city, there's grants going there. The University of Newcastle runs the I2N hub right in town, and they have so many different facilities for businesses. So if there's anything you need in the way of boardrooms, exhibition spaces, studios, they have that. They also have a number of mentoring programs. So they have a year round mentoring program for startups, and that can be pretty much any stage. So, right from having the idea to issues with listing. And they have a group of mentors that actually can go listen to all the pitches. And if they're a mentor that knows, oh, I'm an expert on, say, product marketing, then they can volunteer to mentor that startup.
Well, one of the reasons why I moved up to Newcastle, believe it or not, an old client, look who's charging. So Stuart, uh, he's based up here, and I had him on the podcast. I think around about maybe it's just over a year ago, and yeah, maybe it's a little bit longer. And my wife and I, we've been talking about moving maybe Central Coast for quite some time. And as Stuart was telling me about Newcastle and all the things that were happening there, and the lifestyle that he's got, we should really check this out. It's an awesome place, and I've been really, really kind of blown away by the caliber of people here as well in the startup community. There's some really great little businesses that have come out of the region.
Yeah, we've been doing some great things punching above our weight. Camplify has recently listed, so they're a big
Yeah,
Newcastle success story.
yeah. And I guess look, when you kind of look at anybody that perhaps was thinking of a move up here, what would be the advice that you would give them on how to kind of, I guess, become part of the community and get involved?
The first thing they should do is go on to the Newy Slack forum. So that's Newy with three W's.
Right?
We can provide the link to that.
Yeah, there. We'll put that up on there. Right. Well, what I wanted to also talk, I think, a little bit more just about kind of Australia as a whole, and where you felt like we were at. I know we talked a little bit about open banking and where we are compared to the UK, but as you kind of look at the industry as a whole, and I also always like to include in this, the banking and financial services industry, right? They're part of the ecosystem now. There's I think a far nicer way of collaborating than there ever has been in the whole time I've been involved with the industry. What's your sense as to where we're at now with fintech in Australia, Sarah?
So we have two very big transformations going on at the moment, the open banking that we've already discussed. And there's also Pay 2 being implemented by NPP. So that is going to be really big when everyone gets on board. It will be real time payments for everyone. So it'll mean that businesses and fintechs can actually plug in to MPP and real time payments network in a lot more transactional way than they have been able to in the past. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. I see at the moment there's a lot of fintechs looking to address the problem with, well, affordability of everything in this country at the moment. But I think it's going to be an interesting area to watch. It seems that the government is possibly going to have to play a bit of catch up there with regulations because people are certainly coming up with these ideas a lot
Yeah. What
faster
what
than
examples have you
politicians.
got?
As everyone knows, the buy now, pay later was the obvious example, but there's a lot of fintechs that look at, for example, your salary. So they can do loans on that and split that out and advance it to you. A lot in the home loan space because obviously housing affordability is a very big problem. So, and it's great in the way that people that wouldn't otherwise have opportunities actually get them, but a bit of a double edged sword in that it needs to make sure that people aren't getting themselves into trouble because,
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm a big advocate for buy now, pay later because personally, it's helped my family get rid of credit cards, and we use it in a way that works for us. Um, but that's not everybody that it applies to, and I think it's the same challenge with payday lending or anything like that. If people use it properly, and when it's meant to be used, but unfortunately, there tends to be that the people that use these products maybe need need additional support, and that perhaps that isn't the right way to support them.
Yeah, so someone who did work in the banking industry around the time of the GFC, I know there was a reason that the banks had to very quickly tighten their belts as far as the lending.
Sarah, it's been really nice to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us a bit about what's happening outside of kind of the two major hubs of Sydney and Melbourne. If people want to find out more about Skript, where's the best place for them to go?
So you can go to our website, www.skript with a K, so SKR.
On the T-shirt, there we've got
it. On the
T-shirt. I won't even need to put the banner up there now. I can just put an arrow to the T-shirt.
And we're also very active on LinkedIn, so you can find Skript as a company, and you can find myself on LinkedIn.
And we get some seriously good talent listen to this show as well. If anybody's interested in joining Skript, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a good way. There is also a contact form on our website.
And we'll also put in the show notes as well, the link to the Slack channel for Newcastle, if anybody's interested in coming up this area and being a neighbour. And I'm going to set myself a little goal now. I'm going to aspire to make Newcastle the Miami of of Australia and make it a fintech hub. We'll be driving around in Lamborghinis before you know it.
Well, very interesting on the streets of Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't look too great. But by the way, I've got to say, Newcastle, if you ever come up, it's a really great little city to go out for a night out as well. There's not many cities that are right on the beach. Really beautiful place it is. So, yeah. Well, Sarah, thanks for joining us. And look, all the best with this next kind of 12 months with Skript, and we'll kind of keep an eye out and, look forward to you hitting more goals.
Thank you. It's been great to be on.
Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search.